When you're thinking about going off-grid or adding a reliable backup for a workshop, the first question that pops up is whether the battery bank you choose will actually hold up once the lights are on, instead of just looking good on a spec sheet. I get that hesitation spending a few $100s on 8 large batteries only to discover they don't fit your charger, your inverter, or the way you actually use power can feel like a gamble. That's why today I'm breaking down the VMAX SLR125 AGM 12V 125ah batteries in a way that focuses on real-world setup, day-to-day usability, and the hidden trade-offs that most listings skim over. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of projects these batteries are built for. The SLR125 is marketed as a Deep Cycle, AGM, absorbent glass mat, unit, and the military-grade custom plates claim is meant to reassure you that they can handle the constant charge and discharge cycles you'll see in solar arrays, wind turbines, or a standby generator. In practice, that means you can wire 8 of them together either in series for 96V, in parallel for higher capacity at 12V, or a mix if you need a 48V system for a larger inverter. I've seen these setups used in a small cabin where a 300W solar panel feeds the bank, a 500W inverter powers lights and a mini fridge, and a backup generator kicks in on cloudy days. The batteries stay at a stable voltage, and the AGM chemistry means you don't have to worry about acid spills or venting gases, a real convenience if you're installing them in a confined space like a shed or a boat locker. One practical strength that shows up when you actually hook these up is the float service life. VMAX lists 8 to 10 years of life when the batteries are kept on a float charge, which is typical for a standby system that's always connected to a smart charger. In a test I ran on a similar AGM set, keeping the voltage at the recommended float range of 13.5 V extended the cycle life dramatically compared to letting the bank sit at a low state of charge. The 99% recombination claim is essentially saying the battery internally recombines the gases produced during charging, so you won't see any venting or the need for a ventilation fan. For anyone who's put a battery bank in a tiny loft or under a workbench, that's a tangible benefit. You avoid the smell of hydrogen and you keep the surrounding area safe. Now, the downsides. The first thing most people overlook is the weight. One 125ah AGM unit tips the scales at roughly 70 pounds, so 8 of them are a full-in truckload. If you're planning to move the bank around, say, from a seasonal cabin to a different site, you'll need a sturdy dolly or a small forklift. That adds hidden cost and logistics that aren't mentioned in the product photos. The second point is the upfront price. AGM batteries are more expensive than flooded lead-acid options, and buying 8 at once is a significant investment. The value really comes when you need that low-maintenance, leak-free reliability. If you're just looking for a cheap short-term backup for a few hours, a cheaper flooded set might make more sense. Another practical limitation is the charging profile. Because AGM cells are more sensitive to overcharging, you need a charger that can handle the specific voltage windows and temperature compensation. A generic smart charger that works fine on flooded batteries can actually shorten AGM life if it pushes the voltage too high during a hot day. So, when you're budgeting, factor in a compatible charger or a solar charge controller that explicitly supports AGM. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's a hidden expense that can catch first-time buyers off guard. Who should consider these batteries? If you're setting up a permanent off-grid system, think a tiny home, a remote workshop, or a farm water pump that needs to run 24/7, then the durability and low-maintenance nature of the SLR125 line up nicely. The long float life means you can leave the bank connected to a solar controller for years without having to replace cells frequently. They also fit well in applications that demand high discharge rates, like a lift winch on a service truck or a pallet jack that needs bursts of power. In those scenarios, the AGM design can deliver the current without the voltage sag you sometimes see with cheaper batteries. On the flip side, if your power needs are modest, a weekend camper that only runs a few lights and a USB charger, or if you're comfortable maintaining flooded batteries, checking water levels, ensuring ventilation, you might skip the VMAX set. The weight and price become harder to justify when the energy demand is low. Also, if you plan to run a large inverter that draws more than 200A continuously, you'll need to parallel multiple strings and carefully balance the banks, which adds complexity. In that case, looking at lithium-ion options, despite their higher price per amp hour, could give you better efficiency and less weight. Let's walk through